Hello, my name is Brant Hunt. My YouTube channel is Discerning What is True, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm actually on Odyssey, also known as Discerning What is True. What I want to do is just share a snippet of which I read the whole book yesterday from Jeremy Locke, and deal with what we call the issues of how we're fooled in some ways. And so let me get to that particular page. It's called The End of All Evil. So we have what we call two columns here. One is considered what they call cultural definition, and then the true definition. Okay. So, we hear these things about what we call the word anarchy, and the cultural definitions of it are, chaos, mayhem, violence, and ungovernable people. The true definition is there's no such thing as anarchy. There is only tyranny, and he's correct. Okay, when people get upset or frustrated, people think that's anarchy, but in reality, it's tyranny. That's what it is, because they're not allowed to be free, because somehow we've been indoctrinated. All of us have, in some way, some type of belief that we have to have government. Part of that is religion. Religion came first in some ways. That is, that you were somehow something's wrong with you when you came out of your mother's womb. You were sinful. But sin doesn't work that way, folks. You don't become a car just because it's put in a garage. You know what I'm saying? You put something in a garage and you think it's a car garage, but it doesn't automatically become a car garage. You see, the statements that people make or put out here are asinine. You see, and they fooled me in the past because I grew up in a Christian home and went to seminary, but I also unraveled the falsehood. You see. The next one, see, culture is this enormous, what we call binding apparatus upon us all. You see, this is the way we're supposed to act. Act, A-C-T. Act means simply you're not truly yourself. You're acting. You're trying to be somebody out in public, but in your private life, you're different, you see. And when you do that, you've got a problem, you see. And we're being forced to conform. Conform to what? So that others will see us as good people. But reality is simply we never are bad people. You see, unless we do harmful things to others. So this is the binding force, what we call cultural, and it's in all countries. Certain things that you go in a different country, they may, here in the South, in one time, if you drank a little bit of beers or something, they consider there's a stigma. You see, that's that cultural binding. Or you decide that you're not going to be a part of the system. That is, that you're going to get married, but it's not going to be in the church. You see, and it's not going to be the justice of peace. You're going to do what they call a common law marriage between you and your partner. Why would you want to? This is the question, folks. This is how you've been so brainwashed. Why would you want the state to enter that picture? Why is your words between each other? That is your male counterpart or your female counterpart. Aren't they supposed to be real, binding? Okay, that's the binding that allows you to be married, to make a commitment, to love one another. But why would you have to have the church to be involved, or why would you have to have the government involved? See, it's a contract between you and your spouse. That's what it is. But you have been taught that you have to have some type of license in order to get married. And what you do is you bring a third party in, and then you forfeit the right between what you committed between you and your spouse or your partner. And what you've done is you've given someone else control of even your marriage, folks. You're no longer committed to one another. You're actually giving part of that energy to a third party, which is government or the church, when in reality, the church itself is a 501c group, which actually binds itself to the government. So it's actually, church is not independent either, is it? You're going to have to think, people. This stuff doesn't just fly in your head. You got to think. Most of you don't want to do it because it's hard or you don't want to face it. But that's how you grow. That's how you become a man instead of a boy. That's how you become a woman instead of a girl. You grow up. You take responsibilities in certain things and you make a commitment. Even if you don't want to get married to anybody, that's your business. You don't have to get married. You don't bind yourself to anybody. But if you truly love one another, I'm not talking about a one-night stand, folks. I'm talking about truly love one another. The next word is culture definition is arrogance. Arrogance means foolish belief that you are of great worth, when the true definition of it is the beginning of understanding your infinite worth. You see how they twist it? You see how they twist all these things, folks? It's the beginning of understanding your infinite worth. It's a solidification that knowing that you are instead of what you want to be. The next word he deals with is bravery. That cultural perspective is the nobility of obeying authority. No, that's slavery, folks. That's slavery. When you're brave, you understand it, you see the real definition of it. The true definition is that it's servitude unto death. And you don't want to be a part of that. And so the opposite of being a servant is to be brave. The next one is that we have here is corporation. And the cultural definition of that is counterpart to employee, entry of greed, needing government oversight. And we've been taught that too. When in reality, the true definition is a mandate created by government designed to control economics. And then if you look at your all caps letters, you are considered you're considered a corporation, you see. They fooled us all, folks. This is a learning lesson for you. This is for you to grow up. It's no longer to drink milk, folks. It's to actually begin to eat steak, eat real food. It's nourishment to you because you're an adult, no longer a child. Let's go to the next one. Besides corporation, after that is corruption. So the whole abuse, whole idea of the culture, that is, again, the culture definition is abuse of the law. No, it's not exactly. Jeremy Locke, Locke, L-O-C-K-E, just comes to the real point here. It's the true definition of corruption is the law. The law. Because that means simply is you have to have someone to rule over you. And that's not right, folks. It never was. Do you, think about it. Can't you do what's right without having someone to quote unquote over you to make sure you're doing what's right? Because if someone's looking over your head to make sure you're doing something right, that's not true freedom either, is it? One thing I hated when I was 20 years old in a textile mill is that I'd have somebody coming across me, somebody's above me, manager or whatever, and has to get in my business while I'm still trying to work here. He's looking over me as though, okay, I'm just checking on you, see such and such. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but you don't need to be on top of me, you see. I don't need you on me. You can see far over here, another 25 or 30 feet or whatever, or 100 yards or whatever it is. But see, this encroachment upon you. It's a way of threatening you. You see, are you doing everything right over here? Huh? Crime. Again, the idea from the cultural perspective, as Mr. Locke explains, is violent destruction. Actually, crime is disobedience to authority. You are the authority. That's who you are. You're authority of your own life. You choose whatever you desire to do. You choose to do whatever you want to do in your life. You're the authority, not them. And you got to get that in your head. And you got to understand that's in your heart. And that's why you're always sick, because you actually feel you got to always serve someone else. This whole binding, I remember the song by Bob Dylan. You got to serve somebody. It's either the Lord or the devil. Well, actually, reality, folks, those both are authorities. They've been planted into your brain. If you're not serving God, so to speak, you must be serving the devil. That's duality, folks. That's division. You don't serve either one of them. Again, that's how they cleverly done this. This has been done for thousands and thousands of years, folks. So you've got to break the shackles here. Culture itself, natural flow of human behavior is what they say. But in reality, it means the enforcer of authority. It's this whole, it's almost an invisible chains that are on you. I've got to wear a certain kind of clothes to work, such and such. This pressure put upon you. Or if I go to church, I've got to wear a coat and tie, as though I'm not accepted if I got blue jeans on, so to speak. That's just to give you an illustration. The whole idea of democracy, which is nothing but mob rule, is meaning one person over 50%. That's what democracy means. But in reality, it's far worse than that. See, I was taught that. It's perfect evil. It gives you the idea that you're free and that you have some type of representatives that are representing you, which is not right. Why would you need anyone to represent yourself? You represent yourself. That's who you represent, not someone else giving you representation. That's a false, that's a lie. It's false. It's not true. The end of the world. I think this is a brilliant way of looking at it. The culture perspective is a horror, it's disease, it's death, and misery. It's also fear, I would add. When reality, the truth is that it's the end of evil, the beginning of peace and prosperity for every soul on earth. Let's continue. Evil. Culture definition is darkness and fear. The true definition is destruction of freedom. You see? Continue. Faith. Trust of an idea. The true definition is to have the courage to test principles and see if they're true or not. Let's continue. Freedom, under the cultural definition, would be a set of certain delineated rights. In fact, if I would go into a place and say certain things, say like I don't like paying my taxes at a tax office, people will look down upon you. Do you feel that? Would you feel that when you go into an office to pay your taxes, knowing that it's actually wrong, that you're actually a slave? But they train you so well. They train so many people here on this planet so well that when you say something of that nature, they look down upon you and actually curse you. Do you see that? You're not truly able to even voice what you really feel deep down within your own heart. So true freedom is infinite value of the human being, not a set of delineated rights, you see. As rights, you don't have rights, folks. That's another falsehood. You see, that's, oh, I have the right to do this. No, you have all, you know, that word right is actually a false premise, you see. And it leaves people, oh, well, I can do this and that, but I can't do that. Well, you know, the key is simply is if you do harm to someone else, that is not your right to do. That is not truly freedom, you see. So freedom itself is the infinite value of the human being, all human beings. When we understand that, we give everyone around us, we give them support in who they are, because simply is we all are free. Black, white, red, yellow, all of us are supposed to be free. Not under this form of government apparatus on us making sure we do certain things. And that they, quote unquote, simply is they spy on you. They spy on you on a phone or on the computer. Here's the one that really people can't figure this one out. It's just, you know, it's just really asinine. Government, necessary institution to keep the peace among the people. No, folks, that's not. That's not true. That's a lie. It's a fucking lie. It's institutionalized extortion. It's a way of actually stealing from you. So we have to have police. We have to have the National Guard. We have to have such and such. All you see how government's grown so many things. Now we have to have this group of people over here. Make sure you know you can't build a building on your house, on your property. You see, because you don't own your property, so you have to get permission to put something on your property. That's not true freedom, folks. So it's extortion. So you have to pay someone else to come out here and look at it and say, "Oh, that's okay. You can put that piece of property up. That'll be $50." You see. Do you understand how deep this rabbit hole is? It doesn't lead to freedom here, folks, unless you really have ears to hear and eyes to see. Greed. Oh, that must be love of money. I've been taught that. You know, that's a bad thing to have. No, greed is theft of money by the government. Continue. Insanity. Inability to perceive reality. No, folks, that's not. The true definition of it is blind obedience, what we're all doing. We obey the government because we're threatened. We're scared half to death that they're going to come out and beat up our house, a terrorist coming to our front door. That's what they've done to us. They promoted people such and such in positions, folks, that used to be in the army that are no longer in the army, and now they're police officers or law enforcement, which that's an oxymoron. Law enforcement. We're going to have to enforce the law, so we're going to beat down your house. We're going to come in and steal your children. Yes, insanity itself is blind obedience. Law. Next one. It's rightful authority, according to culture. That's the whole belief. That's why we have government. No, no. It's a weapon of ego. It is an artificial legitimacy. It's something that they planted into your mind, legal. All this was started again, what we call Horace Mann with his public school education. This all started because I believe people knew before this what was more in line with this, but we've been brainwashed since basically 1820s and 1830s for almost 200 years, folks. Life, you're a working biological machine. No, it's perfect liberty. That's when you have life. That's when you enjoy life and you can enjoy it and be in the essence of it. Loyalty, the nobility of honoring and authority. So in other words, you're licking the boots of those who quote unquote actually are doing harm to you. Just think about it deeply, folks. That's what you're doing. which is actually loyalty means the perversion of love, whose true definition is obedience. So it's a perversion of love, whose true definition is obedience, you see. Monopoly, dangerous power, centralization by greedy corporations. No. Monopolies are basically government themselves. Because government itself now, since 1871, made it very clear to you that they are a corporation. Once they became bankrupt, that is, the United States did, what happened was simply is they became a corporation. They became a fiction. And they fooled you in becoming that fiction also when you became a citizen. So in reality, government itself is monopoly. Because they allow who can stay in business and who can't. This whole thing with COVID-19 shows that very clearly. Guess who had to close their stores up? Yeah, the mom and pop stores, you see. But no, not the big business, not the big Walmarts and all these other grocery stores and stuff like that. And you see. Next one is murder, a crime of one man killing another, except when performed by police. That's not quite true, folks. It's to kill a human being, evil in the destruction of freedom, righteous in the defense of freedom. So in reality, you have to protect yourself against those who truly want to kill you. Okay, you know that there are those out there that are so impregnated with this whole way of actually wanting to rule over you. You see. Nation. Oh, it's just we. This is the United States of America, these boundaries we have. No, no. Those nation means simply a group of men with guns who will kill you if you fail to obey them. We know that deeply inside of us, don't we? We know that. We know that they'll kill us if we don't do what they tell us to do. That's not freedom, folks. That's not. And we're not the bad guys here neither. Nobility. This is the context of culture that simply is basically that's the cultural propriety. That's what it means, according to the perspective of cultural definitions. But the true definition is the teaching that one person, somebody else, is more worthy than you are. That's the whole idea of government, folks. That's why you have these people that you go in a court system. Oh, you have to say your honor. Or if you hear these guys address each other in the Senate building and all this stuff, it's all this bullshit. And reality simply is, oh, your honor, such and such, I'll plead my minute here, such and such, that is the honorable man from Texas here, da 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 da. It's a game. But what it is simply is, it's the teaching that one person's worth more than the other. So that someone who's got an education or who works for the government or does certain things is more important than you are. Then you've already in what you call a system of equating people. Well, you're not that important. You're down here on this line here. It's the same what they do with the whole idea of your education. Well, you have a better education, so you're taught. You become a doctor or something of that nature. And I don't mean doctor like a doctor, a physical doctor. I mean this is Dr. Charles Osteen or something of that nature. He has got a degrees. He's not only got a bachelor's degree, he's not only got a master's degree, but he's got a PhD. So he's higher up. He's more important than you are. The stratification of society, a caste system, so to speak. Continue. Cultural definitions of only human. Humanity is limited in its abilities and capacity for wisdom. No, that's a true definition. It's a nonsensical statement. Humanity has infinite worth. We're far more valuable than $50 million or a bank or a government. That's why the individual is always considered has infinite worth. If you do that, if you don't do that, you see, police, Agent of good, the creatures of peace. No, not exactly. They used to call them peace officers. They didn't call them police a long time ago. They did call them peace officers. No, they're the enforcers of law, thusly responsible for extortion, for murder, for atrocity, for war, slavery, genocide throughout history. That's the correct definition of police. They are not creatures of peace. And police itself has also to do with soldiers. You can see that. Not just the enforcers of law, thusly responsible for extortion. They murder people. All kinds of atrocities are done because of them. They're involved with war, involved with slavery, and also involved in genocide. And so I want to share this right back before I forget here. As humans, simply as being an individual, you're not part of the collective. Collectivism is communism, folks. And that means simply your freedom is no more important than the person next door to you because they don't have any freedom. You work together as a unit, so to speak. But in reality, you don't have individual freedom. That's what communism is. You don't have individual freedom. So you're part of the collective. There's a group of people on this planet that actually are collectivists. And they're the ones that actually invented communism, folks, because that's what they practice all their time when they've been on this planet. They've been collectivists. Think about it. Power. The cultural perspective is control over others, but in reality, power, we have our only true power is liberty for ourselves. Racism, evil of hatred for reason of race. No, actually, the word racism was created. It's a created word back in the 1920s. It's never actually even talked about in the past. Trotsky was the one that came up with that name, although his real name was Bronstein. But it was Trotsky who invented that word. And I believe that simply he was not the one who invented it. Someone else gave him that invention to tell that. In reality, it's a meaningless excuse to exert control over others used by governments and thugs. Correct. It's a way of putting you down another particular race and saying you're racist. And that's what we're dealing with right now, folks. We've been dealing for this last 30, 40 years here in this country. But it's been around since the 1920s and 30s. Try to smell the coffee here, folks. Security is stability created by law. Yeah, if you do the right thing and you pay your taxes and you do all these things, you're secure. No, you're a slave, folks, that way. It means security. It means you're peaceful and you prosper and it's created by freedom. You see, there are people who want to rule over you and they want you to believe these things they're telling you so that you actually follow these things. So it makes it easier for them to rule over you. You see? When in reality, security itself means simply I'm secure, I'm at peace, and I'm prospering because I'm free. And that's what this country was at first. Many people were secured, so they did the things they wanted to do. They had dreams, and those dreams became real. They prospered. But it wasn't prospered by simply someone has to create a law. They did it simply as that they would benefit themselves, but also their people after them when they pass away. Selfish. Foolish belief that you are worth as much as those around you. No. Understanding that choices for you can only legitimately be made by you is your responsibility. You see, that's the truth. Slavery is the idea of the cultural perspective is that full-time work without pay and ability to quit. That's right, you heard that. Full-time work without pay and ability to quit. Well, slavery is all evil, folks. Look around you now. When I worked an 8-hour day. I was also, when I worked for a plant or even worked for a company, I always got insurance to deal with my health. Meanwhile, all this was changed back in the 90s when the corporations wanted their way. So instead of having 3 8-hour shifts, now they've gone to 2 12-hour shifts. So people are at work now for 12 hours a day instead of 8 hours. So basically, this is what happens. Out of 12 hours out of 24 hours, they've only got 12 hours left in a day. So they've got to sleep. So usually that takes about 8 hours. So you got 4 hours in that 24-hour period. When in reality, that was opposite when it was 8 hours. You see how they've done this? See how they twisted this already in the last 20 to 30 years? So a man who used to work 8 hours, he would have 16 hours left in the day. He had time not only to rest, but he also had time with his family or whatever he wanted to do. So slavery itself is all evil, no matter how you paint it or whatever you put it as. So now also people work now because they can't put in 40 hours a week because they can't pay, they don't want to pay insurance. You see, these corporations are making tons and tons of money, and yet they don't want to pay people. Not only they don't want to pay people, they don't want to provide insurance for them. So we've gone backwards, folks. We've gone backwards in the last 30 years. I had a neighbor the other day tell me something as well. She was getting paid such and such, 10 hours, sorry, $10 an hour. I'm like, that's a joke because 10 hours a day is nowhere near what 10 hours, I mean, $10 a day, sorry, $10 an hour back in the 1980s was pretty good pay. In fact, it was better pay than almost everybody around me. Now that $10 an hour is menial. It's the bottom of the barrel here, folks. They've already seduced you becoming slaves. State, that's your God on earth. He's able to legitimately command your obedience. Yes. Look around and look in China and see what happens, folks. Many people actually have committed suicide because they worked and worked and worked. They were slaves in the communist system, still are. They actually don't have any property. They live on the compound where the plant is. So don't have a way of escaping, folks. That's slavery. Okay. So the right perspective of state is simply an idea invented by evil to replace the authority of the individual over self, perverted from love for family. Yeah, we don't need to state, folks, but that's what they tell you. That's what they brainwash you. Oh, we have to have a government somehow. This whole thing will come apart. It will. And then they use the word, oh, well, we don't want this to happen, we don't want to get things out of control here, you see. We don't want anarchy when the anarchy is what they cause because people all become so frustrated that what is happening, which is not even true, that's simply tyranny. It's all tyranny. Tax means noble donations by free people for the public good. Well, there's an oxymoron. There's no one free, folks. That's an oxymoron. We're not free. We are cows that actually no longer in the barn. We're free to go in the barn, and we're free to go where the fence is at, and that's it. We're not free to go over here to this meadow. We're not free to go to a stream in the woods. We're not free to just to lay down somewhere in the meadows, as if you think of it as a cow, so to speak. No, no, that's not. But they've told you you're free, and so you believe that. Actually, tax is extortion under penalty of death. Yeah, yeah, it's extortion. Something's got to wake up, people. You've got to see this. You've got to understand what they're doing to you. We're headed in the same direction, folks, as China is. In fact, probably going to be worse. not to scare you. It's just the way they do. They just continue to get the way things are. To say, well, we don't have any money, we don't have any jobs. Well, this was all done. But if people hadn't worn those stupid masks, we wouldn't even be in this situation. That's part of the problem. They consented. That's what they did. They consented to something that really never was even there. In order, then you actually got a vaccine, and you're going to cause even more damage to yourself. Terrorism. Oh, that's religious fanaticism. Yeah, you hear it. That word terrorism. Actually, terrorism is another modern word that's been invented. It hasn't been around probably no more than 100 years, maybe 120 years. Oh, no, it's really actually evil men attempting to establish a competing government. It's trying to overthrow another government or actually compete against government. Treason. Well, that's when you're disloyal to your state. No, the state is not God, folks. Get that in your head. But they put that in your head. These are all programs, folks. They're all programs. That's what Tavistock was involved with also. This is a great book. I recommend people read this book. It's an enormously great book. There's no such thing as treason, folks. Because reality simply is, if you're a traitor, you're trying to be free. You no longer believe in the system because the system has actually made you a slave. So that's the end of the appendix here, part of what Mr. Jeremy Locke has shared. And I wanted to go through them all since I had the time today to do it. Let's go through it, explain these things, the glossary of the culture of evil, and how we have foolishly obeyed these things. You see, just how people really believe in religion, they believe in government, that the whole situation is that they believe in this because that's what they were taught. And I understand that. I'm 62 years old. I used to believe in government too. I was involved in political science. I was also belonged to the church. I went to seminary. I've had to go through two massive hurdles in my life of the programming, meaning the church itself, religion, and also the state. And neither of them are true. Now, they're true if you believe in them, and that's the problem, is that people believe in them, and they put themselves under them. And this whole crap about people being bad, as though they're sinners, all that is all from them. Because they're teaching you that you're inferior. And reality simply is you are not inferior. Even your family said you're inferior, and that's a fucking lie. They planted that in you because they themselves had the same problem, and they passed their so-called disease onto you, or their way of looking at life, or looking at not life, because life itself is freedom. So I hope that what I'm sharing will actually help you to see these things that are going on. There are many people out there who have the idea simply is that, yeah, we need government. We need it because everything will come apart. No, that's just another falsehood, another program. That's one of the first major ones they started with Horace Mann. The whole idea, oh, we're going to educate you. But what they're educating you is to program you. It wasn't truly the way to educate you. Because if they were truly educating you, they would have told you the truth and tell you the falsehood. They told you both. Instead, they program you. We need government. We need government. And the more we need it, we need more of it, you see. You see how this is done? How this is why we're here, folks, is to break away from all of this, to declare our freedom from all these apparatuses that keep us locked down, that keep us in chains, you see. And government is one of those that are external. Others are simply what our family's done to us. Religion is another mind control fuckery, you see. And yes, religion also is to mount against each other so that people actually fight on one another and declare wars. Isn't that a beautiful idea? You know, the whole idea of Christians and Muslims and all this. You know. There are only three groups out there, actually. They're actually what they call monotheistic. They actually believe that there's a male God. There's no other gods. And that is Judaism. That is Christianity. And that is Muslimism. And very few people even know that. So anyway, I wish you a beautiful day. Wish you all the good things in life. I wish you to understand who you truly are and your greatness and your goodness in your heart, because you truly are good. You are. You've just been put in a situation, so much pressure has been put on you that you fight against the system, or you're frustrated because reality is simply you've got chains all over you. You're trying to please your parents, even though your parents are no longer living. You're trying to please the state, government, or a church or religion, and you have chains binding all over you, not knowing that you truly are a free person. And there are many out there to say, well, you don't have, you're not spiritual. Folks, we are all spirits. We're all spirits. You see? And we're not bad people. We've been told we're bad. And that's part of the program. So I wish you a good day, like I said, and hopefully you will see the truth, have eyes to see and ears to hear, because they're beautiful to know simply is that the truth will set you free, and it will. Thank you.